Welcome to the Defence Property Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things property investing and real estate for Australian Defence Force personnel. Whether you're looking to build and scale a property portfolio or relocating across Australia, we've got the insights and tips for less stress and more success. Let's dive in.
And welcome back to another episode of the Defence Property Podcast. I'm sitting here with, well, you could argue the 2IC or the OIC, maybe OIC household, 2IC business, but we have Nadia. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kane. You've let me out from behind the desk.
Yeah, it's not too often, so I thought we'd spoil it with an episode. So what are we talking about today?
I thought we'd just go through like sort of more my forte, I guess, at like dealing with the sales agents and that and the campaigns themselves. So yeah, just like, you know, what we're looking for, like on markets, off markets, pre-markets, and now soft markets, I guess. So my forte, as Nadia said, Nadia's role, it does a lot of the behind-the-scenes searching. So today we'll talk about different campaign styles when we're searching for a property and things to look out for and assessing those campaigns and how they influence the approach to buying the property. So I guess we could start with like defining what's an on-market. So it's on, I guess, on the major portals, right? So realestate.com domain, also out on like all the agents' websites now. There's so many that just put it up on their websites.
And then all our second tier portals like Homely and that, they're all on there.
Yeah.
And I guess so we're searching in different areas. We're searching on market. So we're generally searching within an LGA or a list of predefined suburbs, and we're searching through how many times a day, like twice a day, morning and evening, for any new uploads, just to make sure that we're catching it nice and early.
Yeah. Just depends where you're searching. Some are sort of putting it on start of the week, some of the back end of the week, you're not seeing much till that back end of the week. But if you sort of check in twice a day, you're catching it all.
As we're searching, we're carrying out that due diligence that a lot of our, at least past clients, would understand, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I guess going into next steps or next level down from that on market, I guess, well, the pros and cons of on market, where they've got an open campaign, so they might list it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They'll try and listing agent will try and drive up a bit of interest leading into the weekend and generally have an open home. They might hold one on a Thursday. If not, they'll have their first open home on Saturday. So I guess what are some pros and cons of approaching the on market stock?
Well, it's good that you've got photos to go off, you've got floor plans, which are great. They'll have measurements and stuff. So you sort of can get quite a bit of information once they go online. We can look back at old photos and things, but it's actually nice to see. It also presents really nicely once they go online. And
that can be a downfall as well. So when we're looking at on-market stock, modern listings, they're generally virtually staged or staged live and also edited. So they will present a lot better. I think I've even seen a couple where they are, the grass is crisp green, immaculate. And
you can generally tell, like they look like really strange. You can see stuff's been photoshopped out. So it's got a weird look about it when they're heavily like Photoshop. But
But I guess one of the other big advantages to the on markets is you can see the level of activity at the open home on the Saturday. So generally we're getting a video walkthrough if we can before the weekend, but a lot of the times the campaign or the agent won't allow it. And we're getting a contact to grab us a video at the open home, and we'll see the level of interest. So if we can see that there was 20, 30, 40 groups through the open home, like families or whatnot, then it's a pretty strong indication of, one, that's a bit of market heat, but two, if the agent says we're now in a multiple offer scenario, that you could probably expect that out of 20, 30, 40 people, there would be a few offers. So it gives you good intel into the market. I guess another one or another major benefit that I see is on markets open up the off market conversation. So cover off on, just give us your thoughts in your conversations when you're approaching the on markets and opening up those off market avenues.
I would always ask, what else do you have that's similar to this that might be coming up? Or maybe I'm looking at an on market, it's maybe a little bit over budget, but it does open up the conversation. What have you got that's similar to this? I'm sort of looking in this range. So it definitely does. And they kind of see how you operate, I guess, just through the on market campaign, that they build a bit of trust with the agent to share what else they've got coming up.
And that's an important one to mention, that when we're opening up the off market channel, I guess, through the on-market buying, it's actually through buying. Like there's a difference between inquiring on a property and then asking, what do you have off-market? And then buying an actual property where the agent gets to see how smooth the buyer's agent comes in and makes that transaction to then say, I would actually like to deal with these guys again. I'll be a lot more receptive to the question when it's asked, what do you have off-market? And they're generally going to give you a lot more sneak peek at the pre-markets, I guess. So good segue into pre-market. Just tell us, what's a pre-market?
So maybe the vendor's like preparing the property to go on market. They're just cleaning it up, tidying up a bit. They're maybe haven't got photos yet, but they've got them booked in. So you've got a little bit of time, usually like a week or two, to at least do some due diligence, looking at old photos and floor plans and things. So you start to kind of get ahead of the crowd is sort of the aim of the game, I guess.
Yep. And why do we want to be sort of ahead of the crowd on the front?
Yeah, well, sometimes they are open to doing something before. If we still got a chance to save them a little bit of dollars from the spend of the marketing, like sometimes there's still an opportunity there. But yeah, we want to be prepared as possible, I guess. So
and speed, I guess, is a form of currency these days.
Yeah.
We recently actually purchased in Southeast Queensland an own occupier.
On market? It was on market.
On market, yep. I went through the open home myself with the client. We walked through. The client sort of went out the front, and then I spoke to the agent. This agent had decided that, for whatever reason, she will present the offers as they come in, and she won't blast out to the rest of the inquiry if there was an offer. She would just present them as they are and go through. So no judgment on that as the right or wrong, better or worse sort of way to approach it. Whereas other agents might receive an offer, they'll text or email blast or call everyone that inquired on the property and then create a multiple offer scenario.
Yeah.
But this agent had said she wasn't going to do that. She'll present them. So I walked out the front and I sort of quizzed her on a few more questions and then walked out the front and the client said, I love it, I want it, let's go ahead. And I said, well, put your seatbelt on, we're moving fast on this one. And I explained why. He was trusting and just sort of followed our lead. And as you know, we had an offer in and a few hours later and we were signing contracts that evening. And I feel that with appropriate competition, someone else would have paid 50 to 75,000 more than what we did.
Yep. Speed to get it for a good price. We were both working on that because you were like, there's a building and pest report, quick, have a look at it. Like we were having to go really fast that day. And I spoke to that agent multiple times that week, but they just didn't allow anyone to have access. They didn't really share any information. It was just, you had to be at the open or you were going to miss it.
Yeah. And the client would know as well, like we presented our fair market value analysis, which was actually 50,000 more than what we paid. And, I was highly confident that our analysis was on point and seeing the amount of people at that open home and the level of interest, the speed that deal moved was what saved him a lot of money and actually got the property. So we got a lot cheaper than he should have. And even at the top of our fair market value range, there was no guarantee we would have got it if everyone had a chance to put their offer in. So understanding the campaign, I guess, on market, pre-market is critical and when you need to move fast. Because in many cases, as you would know, we prefer to be the last person to speak to the agent. And why do we, just give us insight into
we just want to get as much information about the other offers as we can. So if we're last, we're just asking all those probing questions and stuff. We're trying to find out as much as we can for the client so we can confidently know what to offer. It does help to be last sometimes because if you ask it enough times, you do get a lot of helpful information.
We got to have regular communication with the agent through that to make sure that we're not going to miss any deadlines by being last.
Yeah.
The main advantage as well is just probing as much as we can on other offers and price to see if there's still that probability or chance of getting it.
So they can go very different, I guess, the on markets. Depends on the campaign and the agent.
And I guess the experience in assessing those campaigns can be the difference between buying in month 1 of searching and buying in, month 6 if you're DIY, do it yourself or not understanding the difference and kind of the dialogue with the agents. So pre-market's really good. Again, there's possibly no photos at that point. If the vendor's committed to paying for photos, they're probably committed at that point that they're going to go on market and it might be too late, but you'll still be on the front foot.
But still, sometimes at that point, we often do get video at least of the property because the agent's going to the property for in getting it ready and stuff. So we often can, if you're.
And in those cases, if we've got the video once it's the day it's launched, you know, depending on the feedback from the agent and the campaign, it could be if we put an offer in, if it goes live on Wednesday, if we put an offer in before the weekend, is the vendor in a position to sign a contract? You know, because even though it's on market, it doesn't mean we can kill the competition before it hits the open home. So having access to the pre-market is important to open up that avenue because, you know, if it goes live on Wednesday and we didn't get access pre-market, we're probably not going to be on the front foot enough to put an offer in because we need to obviously get our video and reporting through.
Yep.
Then off-market, it's a bit of a buzzword. Everyone loves them. Like many people have heard about them. You know, they're becoming more and more talking about. Just touch on what's an off-market.
Off-market, it may be just, it's definitely not going online on any portals, any websites or anything. The agent might be just sending it out to maybe their favourite buyer's agent, or they may be just sending it out to their database by text, email or something, just to see if anyone's got anyone of interest. And it can be so many reasons why it suits the vendor to do that. Could be the tenancy that's there and just privacy or, heaps of reasons why it does suit them to do that,
So just defining off-market is probably holistically high level would just be not on the major portals being realestate.com and Domain.
Yeah.
And then sort of subcategories of that off-market is you could have a soft market where they've put it could be a Ray White agent, for example. They're not going on realestate.com and Domain who have a duopoly of the audience, of the buyer audience, but they'll put it on the Ray White website, you know, so it'll be on their website. And it might be on a few of the smaller, cheaper portals or free portals to upload.
Yeah.
I think depending on median house price of a suburb, realestate.com can be anywhere from, you know, 1,500 to 2,000 to some of the higher median price points of 3 and upwards of 3,000. So there's one big incentive for people to, you know, not go on the major portals. Then we've got like an off market that's on none of the portals, but they've done a blast out to, you know, a database or a list of buyers agents. Talk us through those. How frequently are we getting those?
Some agents are really good. They'll do like a weekly update of I've got these ones on market, these ones off market this week, and it is just going out to other agents.
Yep.
Others, it's like, just sporadic and some agents are very much just on market with all of their stock, but you know, occasionally they'll get that one that it will suit the vendor to
and I think most of the audience would know, like we're obviously a national buyers agency that use a lot of research and data to go chasing growth markets. And I know my phone, it just goes nuts with text messages from.
I had text messages yesterday and I'm just like, I'll get to those.
From previous, I get them from even like previous, like in other regions that we were previously buying in that were not so much now because we're on that database, just constantly getting access to all these off-market opportunities.
And you need to try and kind of get back to them quick though as well. So we'll just do some initial kind of checks and then say, we want to know more about this one. It could suit. So
that's critical as well as a business model, not only for the client, but to make sure that by giving that fast no or maybe is critical for the agent because the agent wants to know where they stand with the sale. Do they need to then start having the conversation with their vendor about going on market? Or do they have enough interest in their off-market campaign? And then the golden goose, the exclusive off-market.
Exclusive.
They're very the least common, I would say. To define an exclusive off-market would be we've done plenty of purchasing through this agent and they're giving us first right of refusal before they consider blasting to a database of buyers agents. They're giving us access before it goes to any soft sort of launch and, you know, the agency profiles and then obviously before it goes on market.
Yeah.
I guess why do we love these?
Love those because there's zero competition and the agent's got trust and stuff. We've worked together before. So it usually comes from agents that we've worked with before, the exclusive. So but no competition, but still we need to move quickly and not like muck them around and give them an answer if it's going to suit someone or not. But
and just going through, I guess many people out there will be asking, well, Why would people choose to be exclusive off market? The first one that comes to my mind is obviously the tenanted asset could have 3, 6, 9, 12 months left on the current lease.
Yep.
And obviously that's going to rule out 66% of the market, being 1/3 of all buyers are an own occupier unencumbered, downsizers, retirees, 1/3's own occupiers with a mortgage, and then 1/3's investors. So if it's got a tenant in there with a 3, 6, 12 month lease, it's going to rule out a lot of those own occupiers because they're going to have to wait till it vacates.
I think sometimes they're off market because there is something wrong with it.
Yep.
So like they know that there's maybe it's sitting on a main road. So instead of going through all that rigmarole of online sitting there, the expense and stuff, it's worth just putting it out, see if somebody out there wants it there. They know that there's sort of a major detractor from the property. So why spend all the money? Yeah.
A lot of our clients and potential audience listening that's followed us would understand that we do pretty strict due diligence on everything that we buy. So I guess that's a good point to mention. We actually say no to over 90%, 95 even or more, I don't have the stats in front of me, of off markets we get presented, and then of the ones that we say yes that pass our internal due diligence, a lot of the time we say no because they don't fit the client brief. So it's a very small percentage of off market. So, for people that are potentially that DIY investor that are, going out buying themselves, just because you've opened or cracked some door where you might be on an off market list, be conscious of the fact that it still needs to pass due diligence.
Yeah.
What are some other reasons that we might be getting, those exclusive or agents are selling off market?
Yeah, some will still just speed because the agent will let them look. I've got someone for this, so let's and speed is the number one goal for the vendor because they've got to move on to something else. But speed, so they the agent will just let them know I've got someone for this, so let's just try that first, and then they don't want to go through the whole, because to do a proper on-market campaign, it does take many weeks. You want to maybe not just do one open. You want to do one open on the weekend, hold another one, give people a chance to have a second look. It is a bit of a process. So if speed's the number one goal for the vendor, sometimes it helps to just let the agent say, just let me check with my...
And just to explain what sort of speed means sometimes is, a property owner, generally, let's say an own occupier, has made the decision they're upsizing or downsizing or moving to another suburb for whatever reason that family's made that decision. They may they are faced with the decision, do we sell first and then buy or do we buy first and then sell? And, there's a very big difference between what path they choose to go with the success of their purchasing campaign of wherever they're going to. So, for example, if they've made the decision that they want to buy and then sell, they commit to a property, they put an offer in, they have to generally be subject to the sale of their property. So what Nadia is saying here is about speed can be important. If they've committed to another property somewhere else, they need a fast transaction. So not everyone has price as their number one motive. Most people are, but conditions and terms of the offer can come into play a lot, and that's why the dialogue and the questioning of the agent of why they're selling is so important. Another one could be just discreet sale. Why we are looking at, or why people are looking for a discreet sales.
They don't want all the neighbours coming through their stuff.
Yeah,
No.
And they're probably divorcing. I don't know what their current statistics are, but if you're getting married out there, you're pretty much gambling someone half your shit that it's going to last forever. And I think at the moment it's around 50%. So many of the times when it doesn't work out, people want that discreet sale when they're selling a property.
They don't want the open homes. They don't want,
Because there are obviously lots of neighbours and friends and family that are going to see that. So, and that's probably another point there. A lot of people just don't like going through open homes or having open homes and having loads of people through their home. So they may choose the off-market pathway purely to avoid not the invasion of privacy, but to an element it is. So there's plenty of reasons for off-markets out there that they are out there. There's lots of them. But we've just got to be mindful that, I guess, that's a good segue into due diligence. So we do reject, like I said, the vast majority of off markets we find, predominantly for failing due diligence, but then also client fit and brief. So what are some of our major due diligence points that we would look at when passing and failing these off markets?
First sort of checks like major things like flood, fire, housing checks, and sort of just like what's around it, I guess, like having a good look at the maps and stuff.
So when we're looking at
deal breakers, aren't they?
Yeah. But, you know, there's some, I guess, due diligence points where there's a bit of give and take or a bit of flexibility in it. But council's flood map, that's a hard strike out regardless of owner occupying it or investor. Would always advise against it. Same for bushfire. And I guess bushfire and flood can be more evident in certain regions like Townsville. The council flood maps are quite overwhelming. So we really have to sort of understand the suburbs and the areas.
It kind of changes though as areas build out and stuff. So there may be changes to flood levels or, you know, what used to be a bushfire area is now not. It's all built
Very
out,
common with bushfires. Used to be a big bushland or whatnot, and, you know, someone's come in and built a large, you know, master plan with several thousand new house and lands or whatnot. So understanding our flood map and our fire map is important. And then we go into, you know, percentage of public housing so we're not looking at public housing in that suburb level. We're looking at a cluster within the suburb. Just talk us through sort of housing percentage or housing commission percentage.
Yeah, like if it's like up around like 10% or something, we're like, and then you start to sort of look around what's around it. There could be a reason. There could be like a pocket or something, or a block of units or something that's, you know, putting it up there. But, you know, if it's not right next to it, or it's far enough away, or, you know, if you look around all the bordering properties, you can see they're all privately owned or whatnot. So sort of dive into it.
And then probably another one of our like major is our main roads. You know, so, you know, many people say, it's a main road or it's not a main road, but, you know, like, and that's purely, I guess, a biased comment to what is and isn't a main road. But we have 4 categories of roads that we're looking at. So highways, arterial roads, I would classify both of those types as main roads. No, they would essentially be a fail. And then collector roads, which is a 50-50 call depending on, you know, like the speed, the lanes, if there's roundabouts at each end and you know, many factors.
Bus routes and things that are normally on those.
And then our local roads, which is what we love, you know, our local small roads and stuff. So
nice cul-de-sac or side street, beautiful trees. Plenty of space,
And then, so there are, you know, and there's a few others, you know, zoning easements, they're all on our major list of due diligence. And then we go down to our sort of minor, and these are the ones where there's a bit more give and take, I guess. When it's an investment, it's pretty black and white, pass or fail. There's no reason to compromise on our due diligence. But for the own occupiers or the people moving into a property, we may decide to have a bit of flexibility, you know, because when it's an own occupier, we've got all our logical boxes from budget, suburb, due diligence that a must tick, but also has to tick our emotional boxes. Does it have a shed out the back? Does it have a nice kitchen? Does it have the entertainer deck? Whatever the family are looking for that are going to be living in it, there's those emotional boxes a must tick. So in an instance where we're trying to jam pack a lot of features into a fairly tight budget or brief within a suburb, we may get to a point where it ticks all of the emotional boxes. It ticks 99% of the due diligence points, but it might be on a collector road that's not ideal, you know, when really we would like to sit on that local road. But we make a call that we're okay with that because it ticks everything else, you know.
You mentioned easements. I think that's a funny one. Some people are just like dead against it, especially owner occupiers and that. Like if it's just a neat sewage line across the back fence, you know, as long as there's not some structure built on it or something, that's very common. You're going to get rid of a lot of stock by saying no to all of that.
Well, most modern builds are going to have that drainage easement on the back. So do you think people are just saying no to properties with easements from I don't know anything about it, I don't understand it, so I'll err on the side of caution and just say no and then move on to the next one? It's funny because, and this is where people will, I want something new, lower maintenance, built in the last 5 or 10 years, but most properties built in the last 5 or 10 years have probably got that drainage easement, and then they're also saying, oh, well, I don't want anything with an easement on it or drainage. And then that's sort of, conflicting because anything in the time era that they're looking for has got a drainage easement, and anything that's beyond going to have that easement is probably too old for what they're looking for. So that's what we call someone that's got a misunderstanding or a conflicted brief. But it's generally an education point, and once we go through that and explain it, with the easements, we're just not looking for them running through the yard or under the dwelling or down the side of the house where it's going to impact, use of land. Yeah, and then like we said, so all our minor due diligence.
Yeah, like bus stops, roundabouts, like
cemeteries, substations, block shape, size, floor plan, battle axe block, is generally a fail. And also fit. So we don't want, like, land size is critical, but it's got to fit, in its surroundings as well. So we're generally not going to find 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square metres in, a fairly modern estate and stuff. And likewise, we don't want to be buying 300 or 400 square metres of land in a suburb where the average land size might be 600, 700, 800. So there's no hard and fast rule on land size. It's about fitting in with its surroundings. Very good. So
we're sort of like moving to, I guess, offers. We've we've assessed the campaign, we've done all our due diligence and stuff, and now I guess clients often ask, how are we doing the offers? Like, how are we going about it? Is there a manual for it? I don't think there is, do you?
No, I think it's just through pure experience, like that on market that I mentioned earlier that we move real fast on. That was purely just, there was a couple of little snippets that the agent has said to us, and I said, there's an opportunity here, but we have to move super fast, where, many people would probably potentially have the same conversation with the agent but not have seen that opportunity that was there, and then the multiple offer scenario is probably one of the other hard ones to gauge. How often are we finding multiple offers?
In like on markets, like, it's pretty common. Yeah. When it's off market, if we're sort of not stalling within that, we can be sort of the first and get it done. But if you drag it out too long, then other offers start to appear. And
I think it's important with the off markets, the speed. Like, we move fast, and we do explain this to clients, because if it's that off market where it's not on the portals but it's not exclusive, and they could email blast literally hundreds of buyers agents, or they could just have 4, 5, 10 of their favourite buyers agents that they send it to, but they're not loyal to one. That of 5 or 10 buyers agents, someone's going to have a client for it that's going to fit it. But you're not going through that sort of multiple offer on market campaign, but there's going to be interest in it. You have to move fast in those ones.
And sometimes it's a phone call with an offer. Sometimes it's a text message with offer. Sometimes it's more of a formal kind of email with all the details. We're getting a lot of agents that want the offer presented on a signed contract, so we're often having to do that. So it all just, we just adapt to the campaign, whether it is on or off market, and that's how we do the offers and negotiation.
And I guess you mentioned sort of offers on signed contracts. How often do we see that that's more of an on market?
More so,
if it's off market, you're having the conversation around price and negotiating pretty hard before going to contract. And once you go to contract, it's at that point it's pretty much a done deal. But when it's on market and they're presenting on signed contracts, sort of, how often do we see that, and what's the key considerations?
Yeah, it's pretty common in those sort of heated kind of markets and that, because they just want committed buyers. You kind of got to feel out though we do try and find out like how many in that, and if they kind of are calling for a best and final, or are they going to present like a few of the good offers to the seller, or are they going to just present them as they come, like that one that we had to do quickly. We did have to put that on a signed contract and then find out if they accepted it or not. But sometimes, even though we're going to sign contracts, it's not necessarily a done deal. So
there's always that potential. You've kind of pushed them as far as you can push them verbally, and they're sort of getting a little bit frustrated with you, and then you go down the, well, let's put it on a signed contract and see if they'll accept it once it's signed, because there's a little bit more commitment then, and when it's on a signed bit of paper in front of the vendor, they want more, but they might be thinking, well, we're not going to quite get where we want it to be, but it is on a signed contract.
Yeah.
It's probably important to mention that whenever we're going down this path, which is quite common at the moment, we're organising the solicitor to review the contract prior to the buyer signing, because obviously we want to make sure it's been reviewed, and we're also putting in special conditions, not just a number on a bit of paper, but putting in many special conditions for the protection, of the client. But there's the very real possibility that the vendor can also counter. If we've signed at 775, the vendor could counter sign at 780, 790. So yeah, very good. Well, I think that's a wrap. Is there anything else to bring in when it comes to searching on market, off markets, due diligence, and campaign knowledge?
Yeah, just with searching, especially with the on markets, like there's different ways to go about it, because you might sort of look at the newest stock only. You want to be across whatever's coming up. Like we said, some of them are some are putting it out at the start of the week and some at the back end of the week.
So just to clarify there, newer stock is not the age of the dwelling or anything, but the newer listings online.
Yeah. So we want to be on top of like what's new and what's out. But sometimes we've done lots where we've searched from oldest to newest. So we're looking right back at old listings that have either had a stagnant campaign, maybe the vendor didn't want to do the usual open home sort of thing and it kind of lost momentum.
Could have been also a campaign where the vendors pulled out because their finance fell over or something. So
they're often coming.
It could be on, back online as a pass. You saw it a few weeks ago. You put an offer in, you weren't successful. It's still online. The buyer's then fallen over for whatever reason. It can raise the opportunity.
Sometimes they just don't present really nice, so they just didn't get all the buyer inquiry that they would have hoped. There's a lot of owner sellers, so they're still putting it up online, and actually some good deals.
Deals with owner sellers. They so just don't know the market and the conditions or negotiations and that.
So worth just thinking about like how you're searching and being across it. So
very good. Cool. Well, great episode. I think that's a wrap. Better let you get back to the office.
Thank you. I was allowed out.
We'll get you back on not too frequently. We've got to make sure that we're still making our off-market calls and searching. So thanks for coming on the podcast, Nadia.
Thank you, Kane.
Many of the audience, or at least past clients, are already familiar with you, but be great to start making a more regular appearance.
Look forward to it.
If you want to reach out to the team at Discover Buyers Agency, just go to www.discoverbuyersagency.com.au or reach out via call, email, or Instagram, or across all the platforms. Look forward to hearing from you, and till next episode, thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye.